Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dean Aviva Abramovsky, and it is my pleasure to be here with you today for this presentation about our signature New York City program in finance and law. We have a distinguished group of panelists who I will introduce shortly, here to share with you much information about this truly unique program, which is a life-changing and career-making experience for so many of our students and for so many of you here joining us today. The New York City program is essential to our efforts in the city for career placement, admissions, alumni connections, and much more. Our presence matters, and we are committed to ensuring that the city is as much a part of our fabric as is Buffalo. The program is designed to immerse our students in the capital of the financial world, New York City, so that they can learn from top practitioners in the field, make crucial connections, and launch their careers. The New York City program also exemplifies the core mission of our law school, which is that of ensuring access. The whole point of public education is to level the playing field. By opening doors and expanding opportunities, such as through our New York City program, we're providing access to those without privilege, and that is a win-win for everyone. This program is co-directed by Professors Stuart Lazar and Professor David Westerbrook, who are both with us here today. Both are stellar directors who are doing an outstanding job in ensuring the continued success of this program. I'm grateful to them both for coming. Professor Lazar is going to share information about the history of the program with you and its many successes, including the distinct career advantages it provides for the graduates of our programs. Then Professor Westbrook will be who will be directing the program this spring in the city, our 15th season. Will be telling you more from him about how he's adapted the program to this virtual format. So I'm excited to hear it because he's got some details he hasn't shared with me yet either. In addition to Professors Lazar and Westbrook, I'm delighted that we also have joining us as panelists, David Fernasiak, class of 1978, who is a principal at Williams & Jensen in DC. David is a founding donor and volunteer extraordinaire of the New York City program, and now is also the chair of our recently launched endowment campaign for the New York City program. David, your passion for the New York City program is a key ingredient of our success, and we truly would not be here without you today. So thank you very much for all you've done and all that you continue to do. We're also being joined with Michael Higgins, who is our new director of externships at the law school and for the New York City program, as well as the assistant director of our Civil Rights and Transparency Clinic. He's got some really interesting cases. He will provide more information about the externships, how important they are for the students, and how to contact him. And we also have Gabrielle Walter of the class of 2018, who is an alumna of the New York City program and now an associate attorney with Arnold & Porter in a global litigation and regulatory and transactional law firm in the city. She will share more about her experience in the program and its impact. Let me just say the New York City program has been hugely successful, and that is a testament to the investment by so many to this program. I want to thank you all. It's been an investment from those of you who volunteer as guest lecturers and as mentors, for those of you who host our students as externs in their offices, for those who ultimately hire our students, giving them that first critical important job, and of course, those of you who assist the program financially. Thank you to each one of you. Thank you for joining us here. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you for being part of our UB Law family that includes Buffalo and New York City. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Professor Westbrook, who's going to act as moderator for the remainder of the webinar, which will include a Q&A session at the end. So think about preparing your questions now. We welcome them throughout the program, which you can submit at any time through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screens. Our webinar tonight is also being recorded for use on the website, just a warning. And again, thank you to our panelists and to each of you for being with us here today. I'm very excited and I'm very grateful. 2021 and the future looks bright, and we're going to make it as a state, as two cities, as a school, and as a community. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Aviva. So the first thing we're going to do, as Aviva already indicated, is Stuart's going to talk about the program and kind of its history, sort of how it usually runs. Stuart is a good friend, a good colleague, and my co-director, I'm happy to say. And then I'm going to talk about how we're, say some things about how we're adapting to the crazy year that we find ourselves in. Then Michael Higgins is going to talk about externships. And then my friend and sometimes co-teacher, David Fernasiak, who really has been sort of the heart of keeping this program running well over a decade now. And it's been good getting to know David. So David is going to talk a little bit, and then Gabby, who I had the pleasure of teaching once upon a time in New York, is going to speak a little bit. And then we'll just have a little time for Q&A. And as long as you all are interested, I'm happy to be here. And so I want to join the dean in thanking everybody for making it. This is a great program, and we're really happy to be able to put it on, but we couldn't do it without the efforts of a big, big team. So, so thank you, and I'll thank you again. And Stuart, why don't you speak a little bit?
Thanks, Bert. Appreciate it. Thank you, Aviva. Thanks, Bert. And thanks to everyone who is on today. I got to see a roster of the people who are listening to this presentation, and we've got a number of students, prospective students in the program, a number of faculty, and a number of people who have taught in the program, both last year and in the past, as well as a number of supporters of the program in a number of different ways. And you'll hear a number of times through this presentation from a number of people, there are a number of different ways that you can help support the program. And we all really appreciate that support. So thank you to everyone who is on this webinar and who has supported the program. So let me tell you a little bit about the history of the program and a little bit about the mechanics of how the program actually works. And as I do that, you will also hear from, I will refer to other people who will provide a little bit more in-depth information about different components of the program. So as the dean mentioned, the program was created in 2005, and we held the first session of the program in 2006. And we've run the program, I believe, in every year since 2006. Last year, when I had the opportunity to lead the program for the first time, was our 14th session of the program. 2021, we will be holding the program in spring this academic year. Spring of 2021 will be the next iteration of the program when Bert will be directing the program, and that will be our 15th session. The program was formed back in 2005, 2006 by Professor Amy Westbrook. It was subsequently taken over by Professor Phil Halprin, who led the program for a number of years before Lauren Breen took over the program, I believe in the 2017, 2018 academic year. Bert and I took over the program in 2018 when he directed it for the first time. And as I said, I directed it last year. Throughout the program, this program couldn't be done without the School of Management. This program is a joint venture between the School of Law and the School of Management. And so while as a general matter, we've had a professor from the law school acting as director of the program, we've had two professors from the School of Management who have been intimately involved with the program for many, many years. Professor Suchak and Professor Dunbar, who I believe are listening in on the call, I'd like to thank them as well, because they've provided a unique perspective from the School of Management side. The program generally has somewhere between 13 and 18 students. We try to keep it a small size because it's an intimate program where the students get to work in small groups amongst themselves, but also get to work very closely with the faculty, both the, I guess I'll say the professorial faculty that we have, as well as the speakers who come in. And so we try to keep the program a small and manageable size. I want to talk a little bit about the format of the program. So last year, the program ran for 13 weeks. The program generally runs somewhere from 12 to 14 weeks, depending on the year, depending on the semester, and the format of the program from year to year. The program, As it's currently structured, 3 days of the program are spent in classroom discussion. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday last year, we sat in a classroom where we did site visits, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We generally ran the program for full days, about 6 hours a day, with breaks somewhere between 4 and 5 hours of classroom time. And then 2 days of the week of the program were devoted to an externship. And Michael will talk a little bit more about the externship experience and the availability of the type of externships. But between the externship and the classroom experience, that is a full semester of work for students comprising of 15 credits. 12 credits are received for the classroom component and an additional 3 credits for the externship component. So there's a lot of work that the students get to do. They get to meet a lot of different people. To talk about the program last year, we spent a lot of time in classroom doing either projects or lectures or classroom discussions. We also got outside the classroom 8 or 9 times to go do site visits. Bert will talk about a little bit of the difference for the program in 2021, but we got to go to the Court of International Trade. We got to go to some investment banks. We got to go to some law firms to meet with people in those areas as well. Overall, I mentioned the 3 professors that have been intimately involved with the program. We had 25 other participants coming in and speaking. Most of those speakers were live. We did have one speaker from Thailand come in on a video conference call talking about his experience working in venture capital. The program has a very diverse group of students who are involved in the program. Last year's program was equally balanced between men and women. We had students of color. We had other minority groups involved in the program. And our faculty, I think, also spanned that range as well. We had a mix of faculty that went from younger, I should say, to older. I consider myself in the older category as well. So that was not meant as an insult. Maybe I should say more experienced. But we had speakers as young as those who were 1 year out of practice. I'm sorry, 1 year out of law school and 1 year into practice, to those who have been practicing for several decades. We had a mix of speakers who came in who talked about different areas of practice. Over the course of the program, we talk about things such as commercial litigation. We talk about things such as real estate. We talk about bankruptcy. We talk about tax law. We talk about M&A transactions. So there is a whole mix of different types of subject matter being discussed. And one of the key components to the program is that personal interaction between the faculties and the students. And I think one of the things that you'll hear time and time again is the fact that students who participate in New York City program are ready and able to practice in New York City upon graduation. One of the things that we've noticed over time is that students who participate in the New York City program have a 3-to-1 New York City location advantage. And what I mean by that is the percentage of students who participated in the program who then went to work in New York City was 3 times the percentage of the general student population. And also, you'll find that our New York City program graduates were twice as likely to work in the business or finance area. So the program has had a great deal of success in placing students in New York City, and we found that there is a great willingness or an interest by students to participate in the program and to come and work in New York City. I think I've spoken for my allotted time. So Bert, I'm going to turn it back to you. But before I do, I want to just mention one thing, that there's a number of different ways that people can participate in this program. And when I say people, I mean people on this call as well as others of our alumni who are not on this call. Michael Higgins will talk about externship opportunities. There's opportunities to donate financially, but there's also opportunities for mentorships or networking opportunities with our students. And for those of you who are interested in getting involved in the program, I would ask you to reach out to either Bert or myself or Michael Higgins or anyone on this call for an opportunity to get together with our students. Our students love that interaction, and we've had many of our speakers get together with students to do mock interview sessions, to take students out to coffee or lunch and talk in further detail about what their practice is like. And so for those of you who are interested in getting involved with the program or getting involved with our students, those are some great ways to do it. So just to throw that out there, Bert, I'll turn it back over to you now.
Thank you very much, Stuart. A few things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're dealing with the pandemic, right? And so the program is going to be completely online this year for obvious reasons. And it's the program in New York City. So we have to think about ways that we can capture some of the essence of New York City without physically being there. That part I can't provide. And it's not just there are issues. Some students may be there anywhere with Wi-Fi. So there's a huge degree of freedom this year. I suppose that's a good thing. And also many of the practitioners who contribute are, sheltering in place, and the place may not be Midtown. So we're really having to adapt, and that's been a challenge, but I'm really excited about some of the things we've done. The other thing I want to say, if I can put on my researcher hat for a minute, is the way I think about the program and the way I think about finance and civil society generally is what we're trying to teach is building institutions in civil society that get the work of society done. So we talk about forming institutions. We talk about financing ideas and somehow trying to realize them. We talk about regulatory burdens and compliance a lot, actually. We talk about tax. So you have an arc of, how do we build the institutions of civil society? I once wrote a book called Between Citizen and State, right? So how do we make civil society, particularly on sort of the for-profit side? Sometimes I do a little not-for-profit as well. So that's what I think we're doing kind of from a public holistic perspective. The pandemic, and I'll probably come back to this and you may have questions about this, the pandemic has put all of this stuff in a somewhat different light. I think from the last 20, 30 years, we've got a pretty good sense of how to talk or think about efficiency. We may not always get it right. I spend a lot of time worrying about things like financial crises, but we have a grammar or a rhetoric of how do we make institutions work efficiently. And one of the things that we learned in 2020 is efficiency is great, but so is resilience. So how do we now start thinking about, it's not just enough to have an institution that achieves its goals in good times. Do you have an institution that is robust enough to survive difficult times? And what we've done across the world is we've written big checks to sort of bridge things, somewhat misleadingly called stimulus. But going forward, I think we're going to all be thinking a lot more about, well, maybe Six Sigma is too tight. Maybe that's too lean. How do we make things that are more resilient, stronger, tougher, that work, right? We clearly need more than 3 outfits making masks, just as a for instance, right? So I think going forward, the way that we think about some of the construction of civil society that this program has been doing for 15 years is going to undergo a sea change, and we're only kind of at the beginning of that. And I actually don't know what, I mean, I think what I'm saying is right, but I don't know what it means operationally. So as we bring in practitioners, we're going to be asking, well, how do you see business changing? We don't look at the world the same way we did 5 years ago. So with that, as a sort of general thing, let me make the screen share thing work. So this year we have I'm really happy to say, we have the largest program we've had in quite a few years. it's an ethnically diverse group. I have to confess, this is last year's group. We do not have a group photo for obvious reasons of this year's group. Maybe I should somehow make a collage, but that hasn't happened yet. We've got 11 men and 8 women. We've got a rather vast array of degree programs people are in, and people are coming from all over the world. So we're really, really happy with the students, and I'm really proud of them that they're still excited about this, because, you know, when things are sort of in March, it's like, well, surely it'll be better by, I don't know, the 4th of July or Labor Day, and then things kept rolling back, and it was, you know, and I kept writing letters to students saying, you know, we're going to do something great, we're just not entirely sure what. So now it's coming together what we're going to do, and it's going to be, I think, very great. The structure, the basic structure we're going to use this year is going to be about the same. On the first 4 days of the week, we're going to have what is somewhat misleadingly called class. So we're going to have instruction from John Dunbar or Sudhir Suchak from the School of Management that Stuart already mentioned, or sometimes me. But most of it is going to be from practitioners. And that's going to take several formats, which we'll talk about in a minute. The School of Management is going to continue to do its group projects, and we will continue to have externships on Fridays that Michael Higgins is going to be discussing. So thinking about things in terms of the calendar, the program is going to look much the same, just all online. Okay, new this year. So as I suggested, I've been thinking about ways that we can do something different, that we can take advantage of the digital environment, because we're not taking advantage of the street environment. So one thing we're going to do is, it's instead of to replace or stand in or instead of the experience in New York City itself, we're going to have a higher degree of personal focus. We're going to do a lot of small group work with practitioners on multiple occasions. So sort of tutorial groups, they should be relatively informal. There should be a substantive focus on a particular practice, so that by the end of a session, and I'm thinking of a session as probably 3 meetings of about an hour and a half, groups of about 4 with a practitioner. The participants, the students, should have a sense of, what does that practitioner's practice feel like? Is this something I'd be interested in exploring? And if that's February, March, you get a different practitioner and you do a different practice, so that you have chances to really converse, give and take with practitioners, and not just the first meeting in a kind of large group, you know, 12 setting in which somebody is giving a lecture on, this is what my practice is. Much more conversational. What I'd like to do is, I would like to kind of increase the exposure or the depth, the granularity of exposure of students to different practices. This obviously requires a lot of practitioner input. And so I'm calling people up right now, and I'm really happy that people are being incredibly supportive, and my deep, deep thanks. Also new this year, neighborhoods and peoples. So I'm proud of this idea. New York City is, as anybody who's lived there knows, really a city of neighborhoods. And normally we say, you know, explore, walk around. You'll, you know, throw a rock in any direction, you'll find something new. We won't be able to do that. So what we're going to do is, we're going to think about neighborhoods, and we're going to think about immigrants, and we're going to think about history. So different groups of people come to the city. Many of them form distinctive neighborhoods. Some of them have names like Little Italy, Spanish Harlem. And we're going to talk about the history of the city in terms of the history of people moving to the city, and in terms of people creating spaces within the city. So this is going to be a small group thing. So the students are all going to teach each other and me an awful lot about how New York came to be this magical place that it is. One of the things you can do online is read, watch, listen. So there's going to be a greater emphasis on culture, both the culture of money and the culture of city, and, you know, Venn diagram, the cultures of money and city coming together. So we're going to do a lot of virtual tours. There's going to be a fair amount of reading. A stand-up comic who's also an Australian economist is going to talk. I've crowdsourced suggestions from this from both students and faculty, and you are all welcome to make your own suggestions. And pretty much everybody has suggested The Big Short. So we're going to show The Big Short almost every day. But there's an enormous amount that we can do in terms of learning the history and the culture of finance in the city, and we're going to do a lot of that. Please feel, if you think that you have a great idea, please send it our way. I'm making lists. As the dean said and Stuart said, there are lots of ways to get involved. And that's a picture of David Franasiak. You could be a guest speaker. I'm inviting people to speak. If you would like to speak, please send me a note. We have so much alumni support. It's really lovely. So it's sometimes hard to schedule as many people as we would like to schedule. Externships help place an extern. Michael Higgins is going to talk about that. Many students find the externship the most rewarding part of their experience in New York. I think a lot of them are excited to get a chance to really work in kind of the real world, as it were. And so the externships are terribly important. We're also required to provide experiential learning to students, and the externships fulfill half of their experiential learning requirement. You can be a mentor, either in the traditional sense or just helping people in terms of networking, practice interviews. Some of these students are 2 years or second year students, right? So many of them have very, they haven't necessarily worked in a city or in this kind of context. So there's an awful lot that that one can do to help them become professional, and that sounds very simple-minded, but it's actually very important. A huge part of what we do is obviously assist with employment opportunities, and of course, make a gift. So despite the fact that it says Q&A, I think we're going to go to Michael Higgins next. I'll be available for questions, and I think Stuart will, and so forth. So we'll do Q&A at the end, and for as long as you wish. But Michael, why don't you please tell us a little bit more specifically about externships?
Thanks, Bert. I want to do two things really for you, which is describe what an externship is and then convince you to host an externship. So externships, what are they? They're internships, but I like to think of them as internships plus. So we provide a structure, a scaffolding around the internship so that our students can successfully learn from practice. We give them the tools to be prepared to perform well in these externship experiences, and to take something out of them, right? So reflective practice, thinking about what they're going to do before they do it, thinking about what they're doing while they're doing it, taking time to reflect about what they have done, and then integrating that back into their practice. So, this is really an indispensable part of their learning. It gives them that real world experience that there's no substitute for. The mechanics of it, it's about 10 to 12 hours of work a week. This is not a job interview, right? We need people to provide a learning experience for our students. It's an unpaid experience. And we've placed students at a variety of places in New York City. So we've had our students at New York City level government regulators. We've had them with legislators, serving in in-house counsel, or at large firms who are working in finance, and in our courts. So that's sort of a little overview of what they are. Now I want to tell you why you should do it, why you should host an externship. First, I think if you're on this call, I know you're interested in service to the university and to this program. And this is a huge, huge service to this university and to this program and to our students. It's an indispensable portion of their experience. And as Dean Abramowski noted, it can be a life-changing and career-making experience, right? So it really is a huge service to this university and to this program to host an extern. We also have committed and talented students. So we have students who have experience in business, people who have worked in banks before. We have students who speak a variety of languages. We have students who speak Mandarin, who speak Spanish, who speak German. And of course, they all benefit from the world-class training that they've received already from the University of Buffalo. So we have great students who can do great work for you. And third, I think this is actually the most important thing, is that it makes you a better lawyer. I can tell you that the rest of my job is working with students in practice, molding them into lawyers while we engage in real cases. And that makes me a better lawyer every day, because I have to be intentional about the choices that I'm making. I have to think about the way that I'm working to model that. And you have to think about why you do what you do. So it really makes you a better lawyer. You get to have these connections with the students, which I think are invaluable. So I hope you'll consider hosting an extern. And if you would like to do that, if you'd like more information about it, we're going to have an email address at the end of this webinar. You can just email there, or you can find me on our website. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Michael. That was lovely. I keep practicing, but I'm not getting anywhere. David, would you speak just a little bit about the endowment campaign?
Yes, I would. Again, you have a terrific team here at the school. We have a lot of alumni on the call on this webinar that I've met with personally, and very impressed with their backgrounds and their positions and what they're doing and their interest in this program. I'm very also impressed by David Westbrook and Stuart, and obviously the Dean, Aviva Abramovsky, who has made small business development as well as financial business, trust insurance, one of her hallmarks. And I think it's incredibly important for this program. When this program started, I have a law degree and an MBA from the University of Buffalo. We all remember amongst us older alumni, certainly the old University of Buffalo. And sometimes when we're wistfully thinking about the old University of Buffalo, we wish that the old new University of Buffalo was like the old University of Buffalo. Well, it is. And it's going to be more so like the old University of Buffalo if you become involved. And I'll give you some ideas why. When I got involved, I got sort of captivated by Nils Olson, who's the dean of the law school at that time, and John Thomas, who is over at the business school and had the MBA program there. And they talked me to this vision they had, and they had David involved and Amy, his wife, and others. And it was very exciting to me because I could just see how important it is for the only state law school to have something meaningful in New York City. Now, we could be meaningfully involved in, pick another area, fashion, entertainment, all of that's legitimate. But my background ended up being financial services. So I naturally thought in financial services, and I think so did Nils and so did John Thomas. So we began, and I think the curriculum was hard to, and when I say hard, it was a rigorous curriculum. These are rigorous curriculum. It gives a lot of these students background where they normally don't have backgrounds, because a lot of them, the business students, may not understand a lot of the legal stuff, and the lawyers may not understand a lot of the business stuff, and there's big holes in the understanding in terms of business law generally. So there's a lot of effort made to make sure that that is all taken care of in these programs. New York City is the financial capital of the world. We are the law school in New York, and we need to be there. As was mentioned earlier, this program has had proven success. We have a 3-to-1 advantage for our students for careers in the city, and a 2-to-1 advantage for students just careers in finance and business. Finance and business isn't going to go away. It's going to continue and evolve. In my years being involved in financial services, which really was from 2000, for me personally, it's unbelievable the way things have changed. We've had lots of meltdowns, fintech, we had lots of very exciting things emerging, but they're all based on core concepts that you learn in law school and in business school. And that's extraordinarily important. I know there are some alumni from background in New York, and one of their suggestions is, this program is a big potential target for New York City undergraduates, which is very true. And I think that's part of what we're doing with this program. I think, this program exists because of the dedicated alumni and supporters And essentially the goal is to make this a permanent program. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's this thing called SUNY, and I'll leave that up to the dean to explain all the ramifications of what SUNY is. But it's a different kind of animal, and schools get money in various ways, and there's certain programmatic things that will end up being funded and not. But what ends up being consistently funded are those efforts, and there are several at the University of Buffalo Law School, other than this program, that are fully endowed, where they continue year after year after year. And they do so because there's dedicated funding. What we are shooting for here is a $3 million endowment. It's not a big deal. If I would have taken that job in the hedge fund and made a couple of big
We'd be done.
we'd be done. But we're about a quarter of a way there. And I think we need to do, we can easily make this goal. The other thing that I tremendously like about being involved in a program is, again, I think that the faculty involved and the dean are very much into this program. And Stuart, I know, has business he runs on the side, and Dave Westbrook has an empire he runs on the side, but only he can explain and publish an empire and all sorts of things. And I have real estate development I do on the side, as well as my full-time work at the firm. But we're all interested in this. We want to teach these young students some of the keys and open some doors for them, so they can end up being fully formed and being important lawyers and contributors to the community. And they all will be. And this program certainly helps do that. Again, I think we're a quarter of the way there. We've raised about $700,000. I put a lot of money in personally. I'm going to put money in again. I think it's important for people to think of that. Yes, it's important to be involved in this program, and it's very gratifying, and I very much enjoy doing that. We've done everything from mentoring to projects to coming in and talk about various subjects. Last time I talked about 2 real estate topics that I thought students would really be captivated with. And then I talked about Bitcoin, and all they wanted to do was talk about Bitcoin. And they knew a lot more about Bitcoin than I did. And I think I know quite a bit. We actually represent Ripple, which is a Bitcoin company. So it was rather interesting. These kids are smart as heck. And they're driven, and it's very important to make sure that they are incredibly successful in their careers, and that we as a university, as a result, are very successful, and that we've made our footprint known in New York City. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up, because that's my pitch. That's the best I can do. And look, I know a lot of folks are continuing to work. For those alumni that are working, we've managed to survive. Those of us that are lucky enough to be able to do this kind of Zooming and have clients that are cooperative. And I think we've all done pretty well. And if we've been the least bit acute with regards to financial literacy, we've all done pretty well in the stock market too. I think it's time to write some checks. So that's my final pitch. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Yes. So, as I mentioned, David's become a friend, and it's been nice. It's been nice to work with him in this context. I think we'll now go to Gabriella, who's one of our very recent graduates, and was a joy to teach. And it's always good to see people come out and do well. And so it's delightful to see you again. And she's going to talk a little bit about sort of the experience.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to the dean and to the law school for having me. I am so excited to be here with everybody this evening. And what's also really nice in this new, Zoom environment is that you don't necessarily all need to be in the same place. So I am coming to you live. Who would have ever thought that anybody would have seen my office, but I am in the office today. There's probably only 2 of us on the floor. We are, just open in a limited capacity. On normal days, these halls would be filled with people bustling in and out of everybody's offices, collaborating, and I am looking forward to doing that again, hopefully in the near future. But in the meantime, a lot of what we're doing is through Zoom and through interacting online. I graduated from the law school in 2018, so this May, it's already going to be 3 years, which is crazy to me. I feel like I was just singing the national anthem at graduation on the stage. And I graduated from the finance and law program in the fall of 2017. So it was my first semester of my third year. This program, it's been just like this little gem in my journey. Ever since I was little, I always wanted to work in New York in some capacity. I wanted to be all sorts of different things growing up, from singing and dancing on Broadway to being a doctor. And I eventually just found myself going to law school and absolutely loving it. I am Buffalo born and raised, and I wanted to be in the city in some sort of way. And so once I started off at UB Law School, I was just kind of open to what sort of things that interested me and open to classes and kind of just leading me in different ways. When I had started, a lot of people had said, you have the personality of a litigator. So I thought, okay, and I focused on litigation classes. And then, when Michael talks about the importance of externships, it was through an internship that's similar to an externship. I figured, maybe this isn't exactly what I want to do. Researching cases all day is not really for me. So I went more of the corporate route. And I actually found myself in a tax law class with Professor Stuart Lazar, which I absolutely loved. Highly recommend students who maybe haven't taken it yet. It was awesome. And I discovered the finance and law program in the spring of my second year, and I decided to apply. Also earlier in that second year, I did OCIs, on-campus interviews. I interviewed both in Buffalo and in New York, and I thought I was a very just A and B equals C, that if I wanted to work in New York, I would go for those interviews, callbacks, hopefully become a summer, and then after the summer, be hired and be an associate at one of the firms. But unfortunately for me, I had gone through interviews, I had gone through a bunch of callbacks, and all of them came back with a no. So I stayed in Buffalo that summer, loved my experience, but New York was still on my list. So I went and I attended the program, which I absolutely loved. I actually started the program 2 weeks late because I was competing at Miss America as Miss New York. So I ended up not doing the externship during the semester, but I was actually able to do it over our sort of July break before the spring semester started. So I was in love with the city, as anybody is when you are here, and I was able to kind of make my semester a little bit longer. And then last year, which was so fun, and I am looking forward to again this year, is I was able to talk with the students a little bit about my practice. I can't believe I'm already going to be a rising third year in the real estate finance group, and it was just really nice to connect with students and talk a little bit about what it's like in this practice group, and also your role as a junior attorney. It's much different as you're going kind of above the ranks, and it's also different when you're trying to navigate through New York, and it's something that is so big, and just being a resource for anybody is really, really great. So many alumni have given back to me and connected me with people in my job search, and I just want to give back to everybody else in some way. Now, as you guys may very well know, coming from a SUNY school is very difficult, especially with the New York market, when you have firms who can easily hire from Columbia, Fordham, NYU. And little did I know, this program and completing this program is something so different that other schools do not have, that having it on my resume and being able to speak about it, it actually helped me stand out a little bit in a specific way, which I absolutely loved. I was interviewing all over the place. I always thought that you would find a job based off of who you know. So, I was connecting, I was calling, I was this and back and forth. And it was the spring of my third year. I want to say it was around April, just before graduation. I was also submitting my application online. And my lucky stars all aligned. They had called me in for an interview in the real estate finance group at this firm, Arnold & Porter. And I was able to talk a little bit about the program along with other things. I had flown back home, and it was the Friday right before Mother's Day. They gave me a call and they said, Monday morning, we want you to come in for an interview, for a callback. And I thought, okay, right. So I talked to my parents and they were like, oh, you should fly out Sunday and be prepared and be well rested. And I was like, no. So Monday morning, I was up, I was out. Monday morning, New York traffic at that time, very difficult, but it was just such an awesome experience, and having this program was so amazing. And now here I am 3 years later in a similar field. And it's just something that really I'm blessed to have, be a part of my journey and also give back to in so many ways.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Thank you. I think we have a little time for questions, if there are any questions. Okay, so here's one. I don't have the ability to hire within my company, but how can I help students with their job search in New York City? Why don't I always think, I should answer, but that's bad habits. Stuart, do you want to take a crack at that?
Sure, Bert. Yeah, I mean, so there's so many ways to help, and as I mentioned before, I mean, and I think going to your small group concept, just getting in touch with the students and giving them one-on-one or small group guidance. So it could be anything from your firm or people in your firm or yourself hosting mock interviews for students to to get that practice. It's always tough to do that first interview that you've done in a while, or for some students, maybe their first interview ever. And having the ability to, come into a firm and meet with either one or a panel of people and getting that experience of doing an interview would be great. Taking students out for coffee or lunch, something like that, where you get to sit down one-on-one with them and talk to them about your journey. I mean, just like Gabby talked about her journey from law school to where she is today, giving them, your perspective on things, your personal journey or where you see the job market today, or, helping students to understand what real life practice is like. I mean, I think, they think practice is sitting in a classroom and the Socratic method, but, explaining to students, what they might do on a day-to-day if they were at your firm or in that practice area. So those are just two ways that I think, you would be able to help students. So I'll let someone else take a crack at that as well, if you want.
Sure. I think I would just add to that. It's very easy to forget. It's very easy for practitioners to forget sort of how much they know and have internalized. And almost every time when we're teaching with practitioners, they say, well, I don't really have that much to say. And they'll say one thing, and then as you unpack it, that leads to another thing, that leads to another thing. That students coming to New York and participating in the program just don't have, right? And so it's it's sort of like, trying to teach somebody to tie a tie or drive a car, or an awful lot of things that you do in your daily life, are actually quite complicated, but you forgot the learning process because you get it, right? And so helping somebody else come through that. So notions of how to make professional connections that seem second nature. Well, they call it second nature because it's not first nature. You had to learn it. And that's a difficult thing to remember if you've been practicing and have some experience and so forth. So there really is a lot one can do to help, and that kind of attention goes a long way. We find with our students. Another question: where and what field do many of the people who come through the program practice once they graduate? Lots of things. One of the things that springs to mind that has grown a lot in recent years is various forms of compliance work as sort of the regulatory world. So we now have a lot of white collar stuff, FCPA type things that were not such a big part of the program when we started it. So that's been a big growth area. Post Sarbanes-Oxley.
It was because of the financial crisis that created a lot more work for lawyers in that compliance arena. Yeah, and so that's been, I think, I would say a new. I mean, the traditional answer would be, big law firms, but real estate finance, like Gabby's doing. What else has been growing a lot? I think fintech now is growing a lot, or sort of associated
problems around that. But it's a range. We have quite a few number of people who go to work in banks and other financial institutions in various roles. So that's and a lot of our speakers, some of our speaker alumni are also working in financial institutions as opposed to working at law firms as lawyers or sometimes not. So it's a really broad range. And one of the things that we try to teach is people thinking about how do different practices relate, how do they relate to the economy, how do they relate to the regulatory environment. Sometimes we finished with David Fernasiak talking about, well, what is happening in Washington that is likely to be driving markets as they evolve, also legal employment markets. Anybody else have anything more about areas people go into? Gabby, what other areas did your classmates go into?
Yeah, I would say along the lines of either firms. When we talked to the Dean's Advisory Council, everybody else was either in firms or working for government. We also had, a mix of MBA and business students. So I don't exactly know where they ended up, but they had, a big participation in the program as well.
Okay. This isn't exactly a question, it's more a suggestion from my colleague, John Dunbar. He says, in corporate finance, the best business people understand the law and the best lawyers know the business objectives. Maybe mention the sharing between the two disciplines. I'm going to let David talk about that. I was going to, because he likes to, that's very much part of his background.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that yeah, I mean, there's a lot of synergism between the two. And I guess what sort of made me different from, if I just went to law school and then sort of wandered into the financial services area and built up a bit of an expertise and worked for a senior partner or whatever, I'd be working on all their business and I might bring some business in. But the way I look at a prospective client is much different because of my business background. Before I talk to a prospective client or even an existing client, I want to know as much about their business as they do. And so what I do is I do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people about the industry, not necessarily that client, and then come up with a really, really strong understanding of what they might be looking for. And we'll be able to anticipate how I can help solve whatever problem they may have. If it's an existing client, I sometimes will find opportunities and things that they can exploit and help in terms of their business or prevent them from getting into trouble in certain areas. And it isn't law, it's more business. And it's sort of a mix. So when you look at what I do, yeah, I'm in a law firm, but I'm almost like a business consultant in some ways. I don't go into court and file documents like a lot of our alumni do, and they do it extraordinarily well, or I'm not an expert at pension plans, nitty gritty. I do run our pension plan at work, but I have enough smarts to get an outside ERISA lawyer to help me. It's very complicated stuff. But I think there's a tremendous amount of synergy both ways. And I think a little bit of a law background for somebody who is going to go work for Salesforce's career, which is what my nephew's doing, is good. He worked in my law firm for a couple summers and he's learned some basics. So I hope that answered the question.
I think so. I would add something else, and that is the way, many of you know this, but the way that the program is structured pedagogically is we look at practices, not doctrinal areas. So in a sense, we start from what does a business or an organization need in order to accomplish its objectives. And so you can look at that quote unquote legally or quote unquote from a business perspective, but it's very difficult to remember that a lot of the ways we divide things up in the university, including the School of Law and the School of Management, are somewhat artificial. They're done for the convenience of teaching and perhaps the convenience of the professors. But if you look at somebody who says, I want to found an airline, right? That's not a law or business issue, right? Or I want to do whatever, right? So law and business is going to impinge on you. It's flip sides of the same coin throughout the process of getting something done. And so I would actually, even if I were to push back a little bit on my colleague John, I don't view them as separate disciplines in that sense, except as a sort of ontological convenience, but we'll bracket that for now. Any other questions?
Well, and also the last bit on that, I mean, being an old guy, when I started out, my first job was with Occidental Chemical, and I was in a business group, and I was the only lawyer. We were supposed to develop new business ideas, and all I did was look over the horizon and what the regulatory regime would be for chemical manufacture, and decided most of what they were making was ridiculous because they're not charging enough money, because it's extraordinarily dangerous, and they were going to be regulated out of business. So, but there are whole industries now that were never really run by lawyers, that now run by lawyers, utilities, hedge funds even. It's amazing, and it's simply because the law has gotten so detailed and so onerous in many instances that you need to have that law background to navigate through the business environment, and vice versa.
Thank you very much, David. Well, I think that's about all we've got time for. So if Eva, if you would give us your blessing and send us off, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, and I was just saying, what a wonderful presentation. And I just wanted to thank everybody. Thank you, Professors Lazar and Westbrook. Thank you, David Fernasiak, Michael Higgins, Gabby Walter, for your participation. Thank you to all of you who attended today. We appreciate your taking the time to join us. There'll be an opportunity for more questions. The takeaway is for all of you here, for the students who are on the call, for the alumni, if you have any questions, contact the directors. If you're interested in participating in any of our different ways, please reach out to us. We really want to do it. We have, you can email us at law-New York City NYC program@buffalo.edu. I just wanted to end with saying, I love New York State. And, I'm also spent most of my life in New York City, and I've lived in almost every region of New York State, Central New York, now Western New York. My family met here. My brothers are here. It is a wonderful state. And as Governor Cuomo says, we're the Excelsior state, and we just keep moving ever upward. We are going to get through this. I want to thank everyone. You can clearly see how much work is going into our COVID response and making sure this program is exceptional, even in these unusual times. And we will come out of this even stronger because we have each other and we have great people to work with. So again, I think I'm going to end on that. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me to unmute. I think it was worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you.